Novice and you're paying the
If you're
fee, they
hungry.
provide the bike. So, okay.
Perhaps from a previous meeting is what I'm
I've
guessing.
got enough bike hanging in my garage. Thank you very much.
We don't want food waste, so.
We're gonna eat our way out of food waste? Is that the idea?
He's not gonna be here.
Just thought I need more pounds.
I saw him once this week, so,
You're good. You got your grain fixed.
yeah. I'm getting the thumbs up that we are good to go, so I am going to call to order the March 6, 2024 meeting of the Environmental Commission of the Charter Township of Meridian. And as always, the first item on our agenda is public remarks, and there is a member of the public with us. If you would like to address the commission now, you're welcome to, or any other point along really quite informal.
Thank you very much. I'm just here to answer any questions if it comes up regarding food rescue operation and market operation.
Thank you. We will be sure to touch on that issue. Moving to the agenda, does anybody have any changes, additions, subtractions, clarifications, typos they found in the agenda? Hearing none, the only thing I would ask is that under unfinished business, we return to the issue of appointments to other boards and commissions. Liaisons and staff has provided a detailed list of all the meetings, which is really quite impressive when you think about it. So I'd invite you, when we get to that part of the meeting, to look at those boards and commissions that we typically have liaisons to or appointments to, and figure out where those meeting times and that topic will interest you. And also I have a new business, the joint boards and commissions meeting on March 26th. So without objection, with those two amendments to the agenda is adopted as amended. Approval of the minutes. Anybody have any changes they would like to offer to these minutes of the February 7, 2024 meeting?
A couple of minor ones. On the second page under Planning Commission.
Master of Ceremonies.
Yes, I think your name got cut short there.
That's all right. I understood what he meant, but yeah.
And while we're in that paragraph, probably a little further down, reviewing several sections. And then finally, the last sentence, it is a 5-year plan.
Yep. Subject verb agreement, multiple plurals, 2 plurals to correct. Thank you for those changes. Any others? Without objection, the minutes are adopted with those changes. So that takes us to new business, and the item I wanted to point out is that every year the Township Board holds an open meeting in this room with all the other boards and commissions in the township, and basically a chance for the board to hear what's going on in more detail than they would sort of pick up at bits and pieces, and for those boards and commissions to suggest what it is that they're working on and what they'd like to be working on, anything they'd like to get from the board, either in terms of guidance or anything else that might come along. So I've agreed to attend that meeting on behalf of the Environmental Commission. Anybody else who'd like to come along is welcome, and it's, in my view, very helpful, especially for some of the more active groups like the energy team, to be able to attend and provide an update on what's going on. I think things like the green grants are sorts of things that the board would like to hear about, not in any great detail. The room will be full. It'll be full of tables facing the dais. And in my experience, each of those boards or commissions will spend 10 or 15 minutes sort of explaining, and maybe in some back and forth with the board. If you're interested, if you didn't get the invitation, please let me know, and I'll make sure to forward you the invitation They asked for RSVP just to make sure they got the room set up right for the number of people they kind of have.
It's 6 o'clock on the 26th.
6 o'clock on the 26th. I'm going to exercise my prerogative as chair and make a motion to amend the agenda one more time. Let's do some quick introductions since we have a new member with us this evening. You saw, I think, in the meeting notes from staff, a brief description of Trustee Trusais, who I've been fortunate to serve on the Planning Commission with for my time there. And he has now accepted a position as interim trustee.
No, I'm a full trustee.
Full trustee
But
with
the
a
term
shorter
ends this year.
Okay,
So
I
I will be running for reelection.
So what I'm going to suggest is that we just go around real quickly and do a quick introduction so that we all know who we are, if that's okay. I'm Bill McConnell. I chair the Environmental Commission. I also serve on the Planning Commission. I've been in this group for not quite as long as John Sarver or nearly as long as Ned Jackson was.
Okay, and I'm Anna Fisher-Colby. I am the vice chair. I've been on the commission for a few years now, maybe 3 years I'm going with. Has it been that long? And let's see.
And your main interest is in the food.
Yes, my main interest is in the food system end of things, although as we're going to report, there's in terms of what's going on in Okemos, there's a number of very active, former commissioner and other residents. So, that's me.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I'm John Sarver, and I'm a member of the energy team. That's how I got involved with the township. I had a career in state government in the state energy office, but I've been retired now for 14 years. And from the energy team, I ended up getting appointed to the Environmental Commission. And I guess it has been a while. I kind of lost track of how many years. But I think you were here when I came.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm pretty sure you and Ned were both here.
Okay.
I'm Amelia Safran. I'm a student commissioner from Okemos High School, so I'm a junior.
Welcome.
I'm Andrea Paul. I've been on the commission for like 2 months. I'm an MC graduate. Just trying to get involved in the community.
Good.
Tom Frazier, going on 3 years, retired from the Michigan Townships Association. I think I've been on the commission somewhere in the neighborhood of 4+ years. Serve on the green team and have also been involved with the food group.
I'm Pete Trusais. I'm appointed to the trustee position in January. I served about 6 years on the Planning Commission. I have a history. I worked for state government for many years. I also was on the Okemos School Board for 16 years. So I've been on various boards and commissions for quite a while. Ended my career formally about 12 years ago as Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources at Mount Pleasant. I'm a recovering attorney, deep into a 12-step program. So don't hold that against me. I'm not sure exactly what my role is on this commission. As a liaison, I don't believe I'm a member of the commission. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't believe I'm a voting member, and I'm not sure I count towards quorum. But I'm here to offer input that I might have and to listen to you and give information back to the Board of Trustees.
Super, thank you so much for joining us. The practice of having informal liaisons between boards and commissions, including the Board of Trustees, has been emerging, I would say, over the last 5 years or so. There are some formal appointments that occur between Environmental Commission and Brownfield Development Authority and Land Preservation Advisory Board, where we hold appointed joint seats on those. The trustees' liaison to the Environmental Commission, in my understanding, is informal, so not voting or quorum. On the other hand, we rarely conduct business that requires a quorum. In my view, that would be something like approving a recommendation for green grant funding. And the trustee liaison has, for the last period, been involved in those discussions so that when those recommendations go forward to the board, there's a knowledgeable member there. Or if we were to receive a wetland use permit application for review and were to make a formal recommendation to the board for approval or denial, or to the planning commission, depending on the permit, that would require a quorum and a formal vote. Have you ever reviewed a wetland use permit application since you've been on the town?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not recently, but I have, yeah.
Tom, have you had that honor?
I don't believe so.
I think it's been at least 4 or 5 years since we've seen one. And we've had some discussion about why that might be, but it's hard to say. Either our ordinance is spectacularly successful, there's no more good wetlands to build in. My guess is the planning department is doing a really good job convincing people just to build around them.
I think they are.
And that people are just getting the message and not trying to encroach on a wetland to get one more unit in an apartment building, because they know that's just an uphill. So
I have been involved on a wetland issue with the Zoning Board of Appeals, which I also serve on as a member. You'd be happy to know we turned it down. But it was an encroachment near Lake Lansing, so I'm looking forward to working with you.
super.
Maybe the weather changed too, you know, there's so much flooding. I think it really though, I mean, it may just seem riskier to try to build something on a wetland than it used to.
Yeah.
Stubborn people out there.
So, welcome and thanks for volunteering, as I understand it, to serve in this position. We look forward to working with you. Any other new business we need to introduce at this point? Unfinished business. Appointments, we have the meeting times in front of us, and I believe we've, Yuman Lee is going to continue in the function of a liaison to the Land Preservation Advisory Board because she's already appointed to that board, so it makes sense for her to remain as that liaison. Since I'm currently serving on the Planning Commission, my intention is to continue serving as a liaison to that group. And that leaves really the DDA and Brownfield where we have, and transportation, where we have typically had some representation. Those are all informal. Brownfield is formal.
Right.
Brownfield is a voting member.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we started to discuss this a little bit last time, but those meetings occur in the mornings, since oftentimes they involve developers or applicants for projects or state officials. And that's can be tricky for those of us with school or jobs. Those of us who are retired may be more amenable to making those meetings. On the other hand,
If people are interested in the brownfield, I have served on that as the representative from the Planning Commission. It meets rarely because it only meets when there's an agenda item, either approving a brownfield agreement with a developer or starting the repayment process and approving their expenditures and all that. Most of the background work is done by staff. So what they give you is sometimes a very large packet of material, but it's summarized pretty well, and it's been fly-specced by all of our accountants, tax people, to make sure it's approved. Some of it has to go to the state, some of it is local. So it is not usual. I think I was on it for 1.5 years, and probably we had 5 meetings. and most of those were done in half an hour to 45 minutes. So it is not a huge commitment of time. Reading the packet and reviewing it does take some time, but the brownfield meeting itself is usually fairly straightforward.
And do you know how far in advance you usually are aware of those meetings?
The meetings are scheduled monthly.
Okay.
And you'll receive notice probably 2 weeks before that the meeting is being canceled.
Okay.
Otherwise, you get an agenda.
Well, once you get an agenda, but the agenda may not come till late. And so if you're relying on waiting for an agenda and you have some conflicts, that can be problematic. They do sometimes have trouble getting a quorum. But it is not a monthly meeting, or it has not been a monthly meeting, and we don't have all that many projects that are kicking around that would receive brownfield consideration. Right now, the only two I know of would be the Four Corners in Okemos and the remaining part of Haslett Village. And they have an agreement. They haven't started building, so they're not getting any money back. There's no tax rebates or anything like that for both of those at this point.
I would be willing to serve, especially considering the kind of the circumstances, and I have a flexible schedule. Sounds like it'd be a learning experience.
Cool, great. Is there anybody who wants to challenge Commissioner Schroeder for this honor?
You can arm wrestle for it.
Yeah, I can lose arm wrestling.
I thank you for volunteering. It can be daunting. I've only attended a few meetings. The level of detail that goes into what is the contamination that constitutes a brownfield and what's the remediation plan, and it quickly gets very technical very quickly, not just on the scientific end, but also on the financial end, because there's monies in grants and loans and tax rebate and things. So it's, but you've got the background in state finance to at least be able to follow the conversation, right?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, the other people that have been appointed, am I right in assuming they kind of have found some people with certain expertise, or?
Some, yeah.
Okay.
And they usually, for anything major, they hire outside experts
Okay.
that prepare reports as far as
Okay.
what is necessary. The applicant has to do that, and we have our own environmental people that go back and make sure that they're doing it correctly. So it isn't, they're expecting everybody on this board to know the intimate details of a brownfield in the law, and it is well supported by staff as well as experts to come in and answer questions.
Who's the staff person?
I think it's Tim Schmidt, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
And I believe the manager sits on the.
Yes, he does.
As a
Yeah.
voting member.
And Frank is very involved in it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I've learned over time to ask questions about things I don't know much about.
Oh, yeah,
so
absolutely.
Maybe that's my qualification.
And that's how I ended up chair. I asked questions. And I showed up.
Well, I'll be careful.
Yeah, you be careful about showing up too often.
Gotcha.
My sense is that, similar to what we were talking about before, that typically an application is not going to land on the BRA's desk unless it's pretty well vetted.
Oh, it is going to be extremely well vetted.
So I remember there being some potential overreach on one project, an old tire store where they wanted to get some things in. I think the BRA said that's a little bit too much, but there's, for the most part, they've been successful, at least in terms of getting the structure in place, even if vertical construction isn't always going on.
And usually, the law is fairly clear about what qualifies and what does not. So the experts can go through that and tell you what does and doesn't, and what we recommend approval and don't. But it's an interesting process.
Yeah.
Super. Well, I think those are all the ones that we need. And I would very much encourage, in general, folks to participate in the Transportation Commission, but it's not a hopeful schedule.
Yeah.
And just as a little bit of background, the Transportation Commission, I believe, was initially created to relieve the township board from having to wade into all of the details of our relationship with CATA, especially as it relates to on-demand services, which that board, the Transportation Commission did, and a new agreement was struck, and it seems like that satisfied folks. So there are now probably mostly spending their time looking at non-motorized transportation issues around the township, and particularly the development of a more robust non-motorized transportation plan, in addition to our pathway plan, which is basically a map of where we'd like to build pathways. And the point of that is to do a better job of looking into the future and to bolster our next round of application to bicycle-friendly community, which expects to see a more robust plan in place. So if you're interested in transportation issues, just by joining, you might cause there to be a schedule.
They may have a quorum finally.
Yeah. Any questions or other issues on Board of Commission appointments, liaison appointments?
Well, this board may find it interesting to pay attention to what's coming in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I will try to let you know if I see something coming up on an agenda that may be of import to this group. So that you can come and at least make public comments either for or against.
Yeah, for folks who are new, can you say one sentence about what a zoning board of appeals is?
Zoning Board of Appeals.
How that differs from a planning commission?
Planning Commission comes, looks at proposals within the existing zoning laws and permissible special use permits under the current zoning law. That may not allow a builder to do exactly what he wants to do. So he goes to the zoning, or she goes to the zoning commission, Board of Appeals, and says, I need this. We've had some arguments about setbacks, that they don't have enough room, their lot is such and such. We had one about an individual that wanted to divide their lot so that they could build a separate house on it. Their lot was big enough, but they didn't have enough road frontage. So the question was whether they could get a zoning variance to do that. We had one where a gentleman wanted to put one corner of his house about 15 feet into the wetlands buffer, so that he'd have a view of the lake. That was, you know, that was one that this board may have been interested in weighing in on. We get some sign ordinance stuff from ZBA where the sign ordinance is so restrictive that a business can't put up a sign on their building because there's already two on there. It's a large building with many tenants and they all want to put a sign up. So they come in and ask for a ZBA approval to add an additional sign, which is technically outside the zoning requirements. So those types of things. Again, that's one that if there's nothing pending, there's no meeting. So I do know we have a meeting this month with about 3 applications. I haven't reviewed them all yet because I haven't received them all yet. So.
Is the procedure for ZBA similar to Planning Commission where an application will be brought for a first hearing, formal or informal, and then decided upon at the next meeting? Or
Sometimes.
Sometimes waive rules and make a decision?
It's not, it can be done on the same night unless there's questions. But if they come and put an argument in front of us, there is staff background, does the research and comes up with a summary of what's being requested. But I think we usually take them up the same night. Unless there's some reason that there's questions and the applicant says, can I come back and answer those questions and do some things? Or would you please come out and look at our property and see what we want to do before you reach a vote? And that's occasionally done.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how the logistics of that work. If you meet on March 20th, our next meeting would then be on April 3rd. And then you'd meet again on April 17th. How would the mechanism of us weighing in work if you're actually the same night?
I've got to look at some of my emails. I may have some information on that as far as what's coming up.
Okay.
That I can send earlier than that. Most of them do not involve environmental issues. They're more of, I'm too close to the neighbor.
Yeah.
I happen to know one of them coming up because it is my neighbor who applied. Next door neighbor, it's a deck issue and being too close to the property line. So
That's the type of thing we deal with most of the time, and it's a replacement deck, as I recall. So it's not a new incursion into anything. They just need approval to, because it's a non-conforming use to do this. So.
Right.
I'll try to keep you as knowledgeable as I am.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, let's move on to the fun stuff then. Reports. We always start off with staff who point us to their sites.google.com/view/staff-updates. What would you like to highlight for us this evening, Leroy?
If you didn't get the latest Green Gazette, let me know. I'd be happy to put you on the mailing list. But I try and put most of the highlights in that. And you may have seen the update on the fashion show not a week from Saturday. There's also a couple big recycling events coming up. The composter sale is live. You can order, first 50 people get $10 off their compost bin. Also doing rain barrels, and there's a Solarize meeting coming up. Maybe John or we'll talk about that. The green team meets next week. Dave is a member of our green team as well as the food team, and he often helps out with the traffic. It's the time where we recruit volunteers, and if you'd like to put a small stint in at one of the recycling events, we are looking for about 60 volunteers. And I noticed that Tom was the first volunteer to sign up for that. Thank you.
I didn't know I was the first.
Does that mean you get to choose your job?
No, I was actually persuaded to take a new job this year.
Dear.
I've been demoted from traffic to another position.
Which shall remain nameless.
He will be, from here on, known as the Shredder.
Nice. Nice. Well,
At least you have a good nickname.
Come back next week like this, waiting high.
And if you haven't looked at the staff update or you've got some questions, take a peek and see if there's anything juicy for you that you want to bite into. That's all I've got for now.
all right. Thank you. Energy team. What's up, John?
Well, we did have a briefing for the region on the 29th here in the township hall. And I think we got a pretty good turnout. I think about 18 people, something like that. And it would have been nice to have more local governments represented. We did have City of East Lansing, City of Lansing, Ingham County, Williamston Township. Then we had MSU there, quite a few representatives of the Board of Water and Light and Tri-County Planning Commission. And I and staff from Absolute Solar did a briefing on the Solarize program. And then Leroy and a staff person from Absolute Solar did a briefing on our township solar installations. And then we had Lori Welch from City of Lansing talked about a EV infrastructure grant that's just getting started. And Marshall Clabeau talked about the Capital Area Friends of the Environment, a nonprofit group that has maybe got started a year ago, maybe a couple years ago. just kind of making everybody aware of that. And then we had some open discussion. So it was like a noon to 1:30 meeting, and it's a good opportunity just for people to kind of share what they're doing, and good opportunity for us to promote what the township's been doing.
Great. So it was energizing.
Yeah, it's energizing for sure. And, Lori mentioned our first solarized meeting is April 1st here. And then we are jointly holding meetings. So, and anybody from 4 jurisdictions actually anybody from the whole region can come to any of the meetings and get involved with the group buy. But we've got April 1st. Williamson Township has, I think, May 21st. And then we're expecting to do dates in July and September, hopefully in East Lansing and Lansing. But they're kind of working through who would the resident be that would participate? What does it mean for a city to sponsor something with just one solar installer? So they're kind of thinking it through, but I'm optimistic that we'll end up with a partnership between the 4 local governments.
Okay. Peter, are you familiar with the solarized, I call them Tupperware parties? Do you want to give a one-sentence explanation of what the solarized meetings look like?
Yeah, the energy team started out by doing more traditional kind of meetings, which we did after the climate plan was adopted, which we did for a couple years. And then we grabbed an idea from Ann Arbor, which was the idea you have a meeting to educate residents about solar, pluses, minuses. It's hosted by somebody who's already a solar owner, and then their solar installer, assuming that company's willing, will give a group discount depending on how many people in the group go ahead and buy, which would be 1%. So eight people, let's say 30 people show up, but 10 decide to buy a system. Those 10, they would all get a 10% discount. And so a minimum 5% discount, maximum 15%. Last year we did have one that there were 14 buys, and so all those people got 14% off. A lot of times it's been 5% or somewhere in between. So learn about solar and maybe get a break on the price.
Do most of the people that come to that, the citizenry, have plans for solar? Do they have an idea of what's available to them, or is it I can see this as coming to 3 meetings. The first one to tell you what might be available, the second one to discuss what you're thinking, and the third one to maybe bite the bullet and do that.
No, these are separate meetings where different people attend.
I understand, yeah.
Yeah, and so now it varies quite a bit,
Sure.
but it's not unusual for somebody who has already been thinking about it for a while and probably read some articles and talked to some people. It's possible somebody just, it's the first time they ever thought about it, but that's not likely. It's more likely they've given it some thought. For what variety of reasons, they've decided not to jump into it. So they're thinking, okay, group discount, and I can get some questions answered. Because the presentation itself is typically a half an hour, and then a lot of questions and answers. And then you really get into the nitty gritty when the installer comes out to your house, assuming you want the installer to do that, and they interact with you as a homeowner. And are you interested in what about ground mount, rooftop?
So much of it is site specific.
Yes. And then the installer gives them a detailed proposal. So the first meeting is just to, get them interested enough that they ask for the proposal. And one thing that I think helps, because we've heard that from other people, members of the energy team, people go, oh yeah, I'm interested, but who do I contact to get bids, And so this program makes that barrier very easy because they're talking to a fellow resident
Sure.
who's already gone through and selected somebody. And so there's a certain amount of confidence that, okay, maybe this solar installer is reputable, at least this person thought enough of that company to kind of use them. And that helps the process too. Now, we do encourage everybody who attends, go out and get other bids.
Sure.
You know, because that way you'll have a reference point for this bid from the solar installer that's at the meeting.
It just seems kind of hard to me to say, yes, I want to do this with that company there without knowing any cost because they can't possibly guess without sight. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, the timing is
You don't go home with Tupperware.
I understand.
you go to the meeting and then you have a week to decide whether you want to get an
okay.
onsite.
All right.
Okay, and once you decide an onsite, that takes a couple weeks. And then once you get your proposal, then you get like another month, right? About a month to actually make a decision. You have to keep moving along because otherwise nobody will know what their discount number is until everybody decides.
That's what I was wondering. How can
Yeah.
you tell what the discount is until people
Right.
know what they're buying?
Yeah. So people have, the whole process takes like a couple months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So no, the one thing that there has been quite a bit of hard selling
Oh, yeah.
from solar installers. People knocking on doors and saying, hey, I got a deal for everybody here, sign here.
Yeah.
But this is very soft sell.
That's awesome.
People, a lot of time for people to kind of think about it, ask questions, get other bids, because it's a big expenditure for most people. We don't want to push anybody into it.
Yeah, and you don't know what you're getting until
Right.
you got to weigh, is the expenditure
Yep.
worth what I'm going to save?
Yep.
All that stuff,
Yep.
so, yep, okay.
Yep.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, April 1st. April 1st, 6 to 7.
Here.
Here?
Yeah.
AM, PM.
PM.
I'm used to early morning meetings too.
Okay, well,
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. Anything else on energy?
nope.
Moving on to Green Team.
Not too much more to report. I think Leroy gave the highlights already, but just so people have it in mind, the spring recycling event is April 27th, and that's at Chippewa Middle School again, primarily collecting latex paint, metals, and shredding documents that people want shredded. So hopefully we'll have a good turnout for that. And I think bikes too, right?
And remind us, some of those items are fees associated?
Yes. Paint, there is a fee. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, if you have an appliance with Freon, I think there's a fee for that as well.
Yeah, the only change would be if you're a consumer's customer and you've got a dehumidifier or a small fridge or a air conditioner, you could potentially get a rebate instead of having to pay a fee.
So you are going to do appliances?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and you just said latex paint?
Right.
Okay.
They do not take oil-based paint
Okay.
at this event.
Okay.
Do we have events that do?
No.
Lincoln County Health Department, I think.
Yeah.
Health Department does.
Yeah. Got it. And my understanding is the latex paint, they all just kind of mix it together and it turns into whatever color it turns into. Is that how that works?
I'm gonna sell it.
They actually reuse it. So, yeah, it's used as kind of a base and it is resold as paint, so.
Yeah, right on.
You shouldn't mix it before you.
Right. Just bring it in the original can with a lid.
With the
Yeah.
lid.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Moving on to food.
Great. Well, thank you, Leroy, for prompting Valerie Lafferty to send an update on what what they are up to in terms of the food to composting team. So this is a former environmental commissioner who's leading up a lot of the work that's going on with that team. So I have an email here, so I'm going to update, provide an overview from her, and then we have David Batten here who can answer any questions that we might have. I don't know if that would happen now.
sure,
Is
yeah,
that, are
absolutely.
we, okay. Wonderful. So as I think many of you know, but for the newer team members, Valerie and I, well, I guess I kind of started these with Valerie, but she really took them, and ran with them. There were food to compost Zoom meetings primarily that were happening for a few years. And that work led into a lot of the work that the food to compost team is now actually doing. So the gleaning program at the farmers market, food scrap collection, so including public and educational outreach, and food rescue initiatives. So the food rescue initiatives are started at the end of last summer. So they have a website called Food Rescue US, Lansing Communities, Michigan, and they cover roughly 25 miles around the capital. So the model is to rescue perishables from companies that supply food, and they do this through volunteers using their own vehicles, and then directly deliver the food to social service agencies that serve people that are food insecure. And currently, all 8 of the agencies are in the Lansing area. So that's Christa Ray, First Presbyterian Food Bank downtown, the City Rescue Mission, New Hope Community Center, which is, I guess, / Holy Cross, Homeless Angels, Southside Community Kitchen, South Lansing Ministries, and Punks for Lunch. So there's a number of volunteer rescuers, and right now they need more food donors. So these are restaurants, caterers, schools, groceries or food stores, really anyone that's providing food. So any community encouragement in that area would be helpful. And according to the chart on the app that they use, for the past 2 months, they've rescued about 5,000 pounds each month of food. So moving it from the retailers to the places mentioned, a lot of food banks, soup kitchens, and pantries. So that is the update on the new work. My understanding in terms of the gleaning work, and Dave, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that is currently paused. The stuff at the farmer's market, is that paused until summer?
Oh, yeah, until the cooler's available.
Yes, so we use a deer a hunting cooler, I guess. So
Township.
culling, yes, for deer. So that it's the township's cooler, but during certain seasons they need the cooler, so it can't store our produce. But it's there's great synergy there because they don't need that cooler all the time, and that can be one of the major barriers to doing things like this is actually having cooler space.
The market meeting wouldn't have occurred without.
Yes. And Dave, can I ask, are there new plans for this summer?
Well,
Could you come up here so we can get you on camera and get you on tape?
sure.
You have to make up a fictitious name and address to put into the record, otherwise we can't let you speak.
Where?
To the podium, if you don't mind, yeah.
Putting you on the spot.
When the red light comes on, you gotta be careful. Watch out. But please tell for the audience who you are and.
Sure, I'm David Batten. I live in Hazlitt, retired. Very comfortably.
There you go.
And so the gleaning program started, because of the cooler. The issue is that the market's on Saturday,
And so we started with Saturday collections from the vendors and the farmers for fresh produce. And they would donate it, and we would collect it. And the problem is that agencies that provide food to those in need are not open on weekends typically. And so the food, if we had collected it, would be obviously not in prime condition. But the cooler provided us the opportunity to take the donated food from the market on Saturday, put it in the cooler, and then the agencies came and collected it from the cooler on Monday. And so that was a critical step. First year, it was over 2 tons of food that we collected during the market's period of operation during the summer. We also started Wednesdays once we saw that that was going to work. Last year, we added a component of letting the community participate. But prior to that, it was all the vendors and the farmers. And so now we had boxes set aside where people could buy product from at the market and then donate it for this cause. And we hit over 3 tons last year. So this year we're looking at trying to increase everybody's participation, but it's working out very well. We're very happy with it. And from that, the idea came about that we could do food rescue. In other words, rescuing food year-round and provide it to the community. Some of the recipients that might be interesting also that were just not included in Val's memo, Hazlet Public Schools, Okemos Public Schools, Grand Ledge has just had an opportunity. They want us to come just before spring break and collect produce and from their coolers before they go on spring break, which is what Hazlet and Okemos did also. So the word is spreading, and we're on our way. We just started in October, so we're pretty pleased with, got over 50 volunteers. We don't do prepared food from restaurants. In other words, we can't collect, this is just in our own vehicles, taking it directly from pickup to the destination. So we don't deal with prepared food very much, unless it's taken care of ahead of time. So if there are any questions, otherwise, that's all, just one.
No, I've got some.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I did look into it a little bit, into food rescue, because in my day job, as part of MSU, I'm involved in food rescue, so we're trying to see whether that might be a viable vehicle for us. But when I looked at the schedule of providers, I saw what I would consider large grocery stores, Target,
Yes. Costco, not yet.
Costco, but
Nope. But yes, Target, Walmart, Whole Foods.
right.
City Rescue is open, City Rescue Mission is open on the weekends. And so Whole Foods, we collect on the weekend and are able to take it to City Rescue again. They're one of the few operations that are open on the weekends. Yes.
And they have pretty their overages are more predictable than something like a school, which has suddenly a spring break, and now you gotta do this thing, but they're.
That's correct, Bill. Yes, we have regular stops for those. The schools are occasional. It's when it is appropriate for them that they'd like to do that.
So what caught my eye, and I'm curious if you have an insight on this, is my understanding is that some of, if not the biggest, solar installations in the township are on the roof of Target. Not because of anything we did, not because of any ordinance we passed or any incentive we gave. And now it seems like one of the biggest providers of food to the community is, again, a big corporate entity. And I take it the solar was basically a corporate decision. This is something we're going to do with the roofs of our stores, and they didn't make a big splash about it. You know, we just kind of heard about it by the by. But it's a huge portion of our community's solar capacity that's going in because of these. And I'm wondering, do you know to what degree these supermarkets are also sort of responding to a corporate policy, or if the individual local managers are saying, I think that's a good idea?
No, it's generally a corporate policy. There are some, like Aldi's, where they're shooting, they actually have goals. They have a goal for their contribution by increasing or reducing food waste is how they're perceiving it, rather than providing.
Yes.
And I think they're shooting for 50% in a few years. But yes, most of the corporate operations have, it's a goal of the whole system. The manner in which it's carried out is often determined by the local store manager, but there is the corporate goal, yeah.
And can I
Please,
follow up on
yeah.
that? So then how have you all gotten them on, like, I understand there's a policy, but how have you gotten them on board then to participate?
Well, usually with the corporate policy, I didn't mean to intimate otherwise. They're human beings, and they also are irritated by waste and realize that it has a value and that there are ways that we can do this if we work together. And so usually the store employees are very much behind this and are happy to see us and saying, well, we've been waiting for something like this.
So
Greater Langston Food Bank used to do more food rescue, and that was where I became familiar with, we used to rescue food at MSU in a significant amount, and so I was familiar with their operations too. And now it's kind of more piecemeal. Food rescue is involved. Cristo Rey does a lot of their own collection now, rescuing food, and so there are a number of different ways that it's happening within our county, within the area.
But you all have just approached stores, and those
Oh,
are
sure.
the ones that have been receptive?
Yeah,
I think that was the
usually-
question. Did you go to them or did they
Yeah.
come to you?
Oh, we went to them.
That's
Yeah,
great.
well, we're new. We just started in October.
Sure.
Oftentimes, it's a shared experience, such as in Target, at the Target stores, the Greater Lansing Food Bank also collects. But their collection is different. I mean, it's a larger operation, and they're looking for particular foods, and we're taking whatever's available, and we'll find a home for it.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're not often alone. There are often other places that come and collect.
Fascinating.
That should be published, John.
But Anna, I'm sorry, I missed my opportunity. I mean, you asked, oh, do you just go ask them? And I said, well, sure. And also, if anybody in the community has a suggestion or a sense that there's a place that they know about that would have that kind of interest, we'd certainly appreciate hearing that suggestion, and we'll follow up on it.
Great.
I was just curious, does MSU, the dining services, do they donate food?
To the one?
The MSU dining halls?
Bill would know better than I. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No,
I just, I'm not aware anymore.
I would say that there was a pretty rigorous process being constructed prior to COVID. And like everybody else, the university, got on a whole completely different track. We still do major collection of non-perishable food at several points during the year, especially move out from the residence halls, where we collect that food in the service centers and centralize it and donate it. And we have good contacts with most of those organizations. So for now, we're contacting them on a one-off basis. There are occasions where a Sparty's Market has too many sandwiches, and they ask us, can you find a home? In my view, the food rescue would be a great way to avoid having me jump in the transit van and drive around the world and do a better job of getting it to somebody who can use it, because something like that's perishable at the last minute is kind of disruptive for a food bank, right? Especially if they're already cooking meals. To show up and say, well, I've got, food for 50. Well, we've already made food so there's a lot of ins and outs, but most of the surplus food from the culinary services goes to the MSU Student Food Bank because they're right on campus, and that's a fairly tight connection. So it's only when our surplus exceeds their demands that we go outside. And I'd be happy to bore you with way more detail about that if you're ever interested.
And I don't know, this is a suggestion, but I got hired at Jackson National, and they have a cafeteria with lots of food, so, and they're really environmentally friendly. So you could check that out. I don't know what they're doing with that, but
Excellent.
Thank you.
yeah.
And the other piece of the food to composting, food rescue is the composting. And if I'm not mistaken, there's an ongoing program of food scrap collection at the farmer's market as well that Hammond Farms is collecting and taking to their.
Yes, I would pass this one over to maybe Mr. Harvey, but the answer to your question, in other words, for details, I don't have personally details on that, except that, yes, it operates all year round. I would run into a number of people who didn't know that it was still going on even during when the market's closed, but it's available.
Peter mentioned that he uses that regularly.
Yeah, twice a week.
I will mention that Tom Carey, the market manager, has just put an online donation system out there, and we hope to publicize that fairly soon. Or if you want to donate, there's a suggested amount per gallon that you that you contribute to keeping it going.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. This
Well,
is
no, I needed to just mention also, yes, in Val's note and in my answering questions, neglected to mention Tom Carey, the market manager, who was an initiator of this gleaning program along with Val. And so, I mean, he obviously has been integrally involved as we go about this. He has the market and he's supportive of what we're doing. He was supportive of the compost program being added there. And so his assistance has been very significant, yeah.
Just to butt in a little bit, you may have heard on the composting front, you may have heard that a while back, the MSU dairy program suffered a pretty catastrophic fire that wiped out several of their grain silos and their feeding barn. And I've been following the process of reconstruction, and there's it's going to be significant, not only in modernizing, but also in expanding. They were previously operating with about 250 head of dairy cattle, which by Michigan standards is artisanal. So the new operation is going up closer to 700, which is still smaller than most big commercial operations, but kind of representative of mid-sized dairy operations in the state. As a function of that, the digester that we operate on South Campus is about 50% supplied by cow manure, which is very high in carbon but very low in nutrients. And then that's supplemented with some form of other organics, which is typically food waste. So what that means is, in order to accommodate a near tripling of the dairy herd, there's going to be a near tripling of the rest of the feedstock, which is food waste. So it's an opportunity for diversion of organics from a landfill to meet this growing need at South Campus Digester. Because of Michigan laws prohibiting organics in landfills going forward, all the industries that generate organic waste are looking for places to take it that's legal. And our anaerobic digester is one of those places. Hammond Farms is another one of those places. And it's amazing to me how dynamic this industry is. There's national anaerobic digester specialist firms moving into Michigan to capture this market. There's European companies manufacturing equipment that's used at Hammond Farms and elsewhere. If you're a fan of stinky garbage, this is a great time to be a fan of stinky garbage. And I'd be happy to bore anybody to death with more of that.
Did I just see a program starting in Lansing for curbside organic?
I don't know, I believe there is an operation going on in Lansing. I know there's one in East Lansing called East Side. The guy rides around on a bike with a trailer with a bunch of 5-gallon buckets on it. It's really quite festive.
This was more of in connection with their trash pickup, where they would provide bins for people to lay out. And
I'll have
I
to
think
look
I
into
read
it.
something about it last week. It may just be in planning. But, and it wasn't for the whole city. It's a pilot type program, if I recall.
Well, if they are, we should have them out here to talk with us.
Exactly. That's the hardest thing to do, curbside pickup.
Yeah.
That's a,
They do that in my daughter's city in Portland, Oregon.
well, of course. Great. Anything else on food coming, going? Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us, Dave. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And thank you for the work. It's wonderful to hear about. I see green burial on our agendas. Is somebody prepared to speak to, somebody asked for an update and then there was some email I didn't read closely.
We did hear from Wanda Bloomquist, who they have a new green burial site in Williamstown Township that's been kind of a model. They are now taking reservations for plots, selling plots, I guess. But the green burial team does not have any update that I'm aware of, other than Wanda Bloomquist's update. But if you're dying to hear more, it picks you up.
He doesn't, that's not accidental. There's actually his stock in trade. Keep going.
No, I'm done.
Okay. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that exploring green burial is on the implementation list of the master plan
It's
draft.
listed in there as something to look into, yes.
Yeah, great.
Either pro or con, just to explore.
Earth Club.
There's a couple of things. So I know last time I mentioned that they were planning a independent tech recycling day, but it was really kind of vague. They've announced the date that they will decide the date of the recycling drive, which should be the next meeting. They're planning on discussing it as an actual sort of solidified item. So I might be able to get back to you on that next meeting, perhaps, if they actually reach a consensus there. In terms of the fashion event that is happening at the mall upcoming, I think in March, there have been a couple posters in the high school, so I know they're trying to have some sort of outreach and encouragement to attend the event on that front. I'm not entirely sure how successful that'd be, but I have seen it around the school. There's flyers up. And then finally, not entirely related to Earth Club, but I know Okemos Outreach has had a bottle and can drive recently as a way to fundraise for their events. It seems to be like more popular at the high school now to use recycling as a fundraising source, which is, I suppose, a good thing.
Yeah. Can you remind us what Okemos Outreach is?
To my understanding, it's not exactly a club, more of, they do like a sort of event where they send students down and it's led by a teacher. I believe it's Mrs. Harrod. I might be wrong.
I was a part of that club, actually.
Do you want to speak about it? 'Cause I've
Yeah.
never been in it.
It was Mr. Fay, he was like my math teacher, he exposed me to it. You go down to Southside Chicago and you help out with this daycare that this lady named Miss Pearl, she runs for free for like in-need mothers as long as they go to school or have a job and go to a Bible study. And so we would go down there for a week and just help out for free. And so the bottle can was how we fundraised to get money to drive down there and feed ourselves and stuff like that.
Sweet. My Boy Scout troop used to fill a shipping container with newspapers. Not bad work. Back in the days when you could get paid for newspapers. Now,
When people took newspapers.
when people read newspapers, yeah, when people had bags of newspapers, exactly. All right, any other liaison reports or anything else anybody would like to share this evening? If not, final opportunity for public remarks. And adjournment. Thank you all for coming. See you next month.
Thank you.